Hey, so I want to make this video on the most important lesson I learned from my first short film at film school at NYU Tisch. Now, I had made other short films prior to this and other short exercises in this class, but this was the first one that I made that I felt was a fully fledged story on its own, in its own right, in 3 minutes, with themes of its own that any audience could dive into the world of. And the name of that film is Vertebrate. It's the last video I uploaded on this YouTube channel. And I strongly encourage you to go check it out before watching this video because it will enrich this commentary a bit more. And this whole talk will be more informative if you just know what the story is and what went into it. And just to give you a little bit of context about Vertebrate quickly, I made it at my first class at NYU. It was called Sight and Sound, and it was basically an exercise-oriented class where each week we would crew up with a couple other classmates, and we would be given prompts, and we had to make films based on those prompts with essentially no budget, no sound. They were supposed to be in black and white, but we often shot them in color so we could have them for our reel and then delivered them to the teacher in black and white. But basically, we had to be incredibly creative, and this was to build our filmmaking muscle so that we didn't rely on huge production pieces and we could just work on our storytelling. So I think our first prompt was something called movement, and a lot of students would make films about people following each other, chase scenes, or just movement with the camera. How can you tell a story with movement with the camera? Another exercise was interaction. How can you make two people interacting compelling without any real story, without sound, without dialogue? So that was the sort of class it was, and this was meant to be exercise, a lot of room for failure and for error. And then we had this exercise, this prompt called voiceover, and that's the one in which Vertebrate was made.
You see this beautiful specimen? This is my favorite girlfriend.
And this was the prompt where I really felt that the creative limitations perfectly met with the creative freedom, because I was now able to do voiceover on this film, and I was able to shoot something in a limited scope, but also had so much room in post to tell a story about it.
Those are my favorite places that I've traveled in my mind.
And again, I'll give you another warning to check the film out, because from here on are spoilers. And if I spoil one thing about this film, I spoil the entire thing because it's a 3-minute piece. But basically, the film I originally wanted to make with a much bigger budget was about someone who had agoraphobia or some extreme sort of OCD, and he didn't want to face the outside world, so he created a world for him inside his house. He went on runs on his treadmill for romantic interests. He utilized dating apps and had people come to the house. The idea was that he never left his house, but obviously, and I came up with this before I entered film school, but obviously this would require much bigger budget, bigger set pieces for the entire world. He created for himself more cast and crew. And so then when it came time for this exercise, I still wanted to tell that story, and I thought voiceover could be a great way to tell it with lower scope and lower budget. And I ended up essentially telling that same kind of story, just about a guy who was paralyzed. And I found that they could have almost identical experiences as far as storytelling went. Now, this is not to say that the circumstances of someone who has OCD and who's paralyzed are the same. That's not what I'm saying. But it is to say the beauty of filmmaking is that you could connect people from all walks of life. That's why we go to the movies and we watch war movies, or we watch, romance movies that we've never experienced, and we still relate to it because of the universal emotion. And I figured that I could tell with this person who was dealing with this foreign condition to me. He embodied the universal themes and emotions I wanted to explore, of isolation, longing for connection, resentment of authority, need for liberation and freedom. I could put that all in this concept. And so the most important thing I learned was how much freedom I had within that limitation. I made this film with $0, really $0. There was $0 put into it. All the equipment was from the film school, obviously. All the crew members worked on it for free. The actor was one of my friends. I did the voiceover. I came up with the idea, the final idea, in basically a night, and then edited it the next night after we shot in a day. And in a time where I'm in now, where I'm at sort of a more developed state in my film career, I'm wanting to make bigger budget films and submit them to festivals. And there's a lot of pressure because no matter how good the film is, if it doesn't get in places, or if it doesn't get seen or doesn't get distribution, you feel like you've given so much. And so for me, it feels like kind of all or nothing oftentimes. But I sometimes forget that there's a little in between, that you can always go out there with a few of your friends with a cheap camera rental or one of your friends' cameras and shoot something compelling, like I feel Vertebrate is. And this is why I want to make this video, and I hope to make a lessons on films for all the films I've shot, because I think there are lessons to be learned with films of all scopes and budgets. And the lesson for this one with low budget is that you may not have the budget for the plot you have in your head, but you oftentimes have the budget for the story that's underneath, the themes that are underneath. And this video is as much as it is for anyone watching as it is for me, because that is something I need to really embody, something I really need to manifest, because I'm oftentimes in a writing rut, because I'm scared to even write something knowing how much work is going to have to go into making it, just in terms of the months of pre-production and then the crazy production and then post-production, all the money, like literally rent money, bills, all that stuff. And sometimes you need to ease your way into your artistry by just making a small budgetless film with a really creative story that you spend just a hard working day creating. And that's why I like to get in the habit of allowing myself to fail more, allowing myself to make smaller projects more. That's why a few months ago I uploaded a video to this channel called Last Day of Summer, which was me and a few other people going upstate and just shooting our day, and me editing it together in sort of an artful and poetic way, because, just to show myself that you can create something out of nothing. And if I continue to give myself the permission to not be perfect the way I did in my first class at NYU, I'll move forward with the same creativity and confidence, and I believe everyone else will as well.